You know that feeling when your whole world shifts in a single second? When the person you trusted most looks you dead in the eye and shatters everything you thought was real? That's exactly what happened to me on a Tuesday morning in April. A regular Tuesday. I was standing in our kitchen in suburban Atlanta, wearing my favorite robe, stirring cream into his coffee just the way he liked it, 2 sugars, splash of hazelnut creamer. The morning sun was streaming through our bay windows, highlighting the family photos on the wall. 23 years of memories, 23 years of building a life together. And then he slid a manila envelope across our kitchen counter. "What's this?" I asked, still holding the coffee spoon, still smiling because I thought maybe it was theater tickets or vacation plans. "Divorce papers," he said, just like that. 2 words, flat, cold, like he was telling me the weather forecast. I need you to pause right here with me. Before we go any further into this nightmare, I want to know, where are you watching this from? Are you in your car on lunch break? Sitting at home after a long day? Drop your location in the comments. And if this story already has your attention, hit that like button because you're not going to believe where this goes. The coffee spoon clattered into the sink. My hands had just stopped working. My brain, too, because this couldn't be real. The night before, literally 12 hours earlier, this man had held me close on our couch, kissed my forehead, and whispered, "I love you, baby. You're my whole world." And now he was serving me divorce papers over breakfast. Is this a joke? My voice came out small, fractured. I barely recognized it. No joke. He was already backing toward the door, briefcase in hand, keys jingling. "My lawyer will be in touch. You'll want to get your own attorney. This doesn't have to be ugly." Doesn't have to be ugly? I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rewind time 12 hours and stay awake, keep him talking, figure out when the man I married had been replaced by this stranger. "Wait, just wait!" I grabbed the edge of the counter to steady myself. You don't just drop divorce papers on someone after 23 years. We talk. We go to counseling. I'm done talking. His hand was already on the doorknob. "I've been done for a while. You didn't notice." And then he left. Just walked out of our house like it was any other workday, like he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the center of my life. I stood there in that kitchen for I don't know how long. Could have been 5 minutes, could have been an hour. The coffee pot kept beeping. It does that when you don't turn it off after brewing. That stupid beep was the only sound in the house, that and my own breathing, which had turned quick and shallow. Finally, my hand stopped shaking enough to pick up the envelope. Peterson and Associates, attorneys at law, a fancy firm downtown, the kind with marble floors and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. I'd driven past their building 100 times. I pulled out the papers with trembling fingers. Legal jargon swam across the pages. Petitioner, respondent, irreconcilable differences, division of assets. The words might as well have been in another language. But then I saw the date at the top. These papers had been filed 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of him coming home every evening, 3 weeks of family dinners where he asked about my day, 3 weeks of sleeping next to each other, of morning coffee, of inside jokes, of him telling me he loved me. All of it a performance, all of it a lie. I sank down onto the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet where we kept our good china. The china we'd received as wedding gifts, the china we used every Thanksgiving and Christmas when both our families came over. This couldn't be happening, not to us, not after everything we'd built. We weren't one of those couples. We were the solid ones, the ones other people pointed to and said, "That's what marriage should look like." We'd survived his job changes and my father's death and our daughter moving across the country for college. We'd weathered financial struggles in the early years, health scares, the normal wear and tear that comes with 2 decades of partnership. Or so I thought. My phone started buzzing, my best friend calling, then my sister, then my daughter. Somehow they all knew already. He must have sent some kind of group text, or maybe his family had started the gossip chain. I couldn't answer, couldn't form words yet. Instead, I finally forced myself to read through the papers properly. That's when I noticed something strange. The asset division section was wrong. According to these documents, we had almost nothing. Our house was listed at half its actual value. Our joint savings account showed a balance of just $8,000 when I knew for a fact we had over $200,000 in there. My retirement account that I'd been building for 20 years listed as $12,000. I grabbed my laptop from the dining room table with shaking hands, logged into our bank accounts, the ones I'd always had full access to because we believed in financial transparency, except the accounts wouldn't load. Password incorrect, the screen read. He'd locked me out. I tried again. Same message. Tried our savings account, our investment accounts. Every single one came back with the same error. My chest tightened. This wasn't just a divorce. This was something else, something calculated, something that had been planned long before that manila envelope appeared on our kitchen counter. I was still sitting on the floor when my phone rang again, this time a number I didn't recognize. For some reason, I answered. "Hello, this is calling from First National Bank. Am I speaking with the account holder?" "Yes, this is she." "Ma'am, we're calling because there's been some unusual activity on your joint account, several large transfers over the past 3 weeks. We wanted to verify these were authorized transactions." My blood ran cold. "I didn't authorize those," I whispered. "I didn't authorize any of that." There was a pause on the other end. "Ma'am, I think you need to come into the branch, today if possible, and you might want to bring a lawyer." I made it to the bank by noon, still in my robe and slippers because getting dressed felt impossible. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. A kind manager named Patricia took one look at me and led me to a private office. "Tell me everything," she said, gently sliding a box of tissues across her desk. So I did. The divorce papers, the locked accounts, the phone call, all of it came pouring out in a jumbled, tear-soaked confession. Patricia listened with a deepening frown. Then she pulled up our accounts on her computer, and her expression shifted from concerned to alarmed. "Ma'am," she caught herself. Maybe she saw the irony in using my married name. "I need to show you something." She turned the monitor toward me. Our joint account transaction history filled the screen, and my stomach dropped with each line I read. Transfer out, $25,000. Transfer out, $18,000. Transfer out, $32,000. On and on, dozens of transactions, all initiated from his login, all going to an account I'd never seen before. "But how?" My voice cracked. "This is a joint account. Shouldn't I have been notified?" Her jaw tightened. "You should have been. That's bank policy for any transfer over $10,000 from a joint account. But I'm seeing here that he changed the notification settings 3 months ago, redirected all alerts to only his email and phone number." 3 months? He'd been planning this for 3 months minimum. "There's more," Patricia said quietly. She pulled up another screen. "Your retirement account, the one that should have been in your name only. I'm seeing here that he had himself added as a joint holder 2 months ago. Did you sign paperwork for that?" "No, absolutely not. I would never." "That's what I thought. Because the signature on file doesn't match your previous signatures, not even close." The room tilted. He forged my signature? I can't make that determination officially, but yes, that's what it looks like. This wasn't just a divorce. This was fraud. This was theft. This was a man I'd trusted with everything, systematically erasing me from my own financial life. "What do I do?" I asked, hating how helpless I sounded. "How do I stop this?" Patricia leaned forward, her expression fierce. "First, we freeze everything that's left. Second, you file a police report. Third, you get yourself the best divorce attorney in Atlanta. And fourth," she paused, making sure I was really hearing her, "you fight back. Because men like this, they count on us being too shocked, too hurt, too embarrassed to fight. They count on us rolling over." Something in her tone made me look up. "You've seen this before?" "More times than I can count. Usually the woman doesn't catch it until it's too late, but you called the same day. That means there's still time, still money we can protect." She spent the next hour helping me. We froze every account we could, filed fraud reports, secured the roughly $13,000 that hadn't been transferred yet. It wasn't much compared to what he'd taken, but it was something. "One more thing," Patricia said as I was leaving. "The account he transferred everything to, it's not in his name alone. There's a joint holder." My heart stopped. "Who?" She hesitated, probably weighing privacy policies against basic human decency. Finally, she wrote a name on a sticky note and slid it across the desk. I didn't recognize the name, but I took a photo of it with my phone, hands shaking so badly I had to try 3 times to get it in focus. On the drive home, which I barely remember honestly, I was operating on pure autopilot, my phone rang. My daughter. "Mom, what in the hell is going on? Dad sent this weird text saying you two are divorcing and I shouldn't believe anything he says about him." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Of course he had, getting ahead of the narrative, making me look like the unstable one. "Sweetheart, I need you to listen carefully. Your father filed for divorce yesterday." "Yesterday? Mom, that's insane. You two were fine last week when we video chatted." "I thought so too, but there's more. He's been stealing from our accounts. Fraud, forgery. I'm working with the bank and I'll need to file a police report." Silence on the other end. Then, "Dad did that? No, no, Mom, that doesn't make sense. He wouldn't." "Baby, I have bank statements, forged signatures. I'm not making this up." "But why? Why would he do that?" Her voice broke, and my heart shattered all over again. This wasn't just my marriage ending. This was my daughter's family imploding. "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." After we hung up, with her promising to fly home that weekend, I sat in my driveway for a long time. Our house looked the same as it always had. Red brick colonial, black shutters, that flower garden I'd planted 10 years ago. Everything looked normal. Everything was a lie. I forced myself to go inside, walked straight to his home office, the room he'd always kept locked, saying he needed privacy for work calls and concentration. The door wasn't locked now. Why would it be? He didn't think he needed to hide anything anymore. He thought he'd won. I started searching. His filing cabinets were meticulously organized, which should have been my first clue something was wrong. My husband had never been organized. He'd lost his keys twice a week and could never find important documents. But these files, labeled, dated, color-coded. I pulled out the first drawer, tax returns going back 7 years. I grabbed the most recent one and started reading. Nothing looked unusual at first, but then I noticed something odd in the business expenses section. We ran a small consulting firm together. Technically, he was the face of it, but I'd handled the books for years until he'd insisted on hiring an accountant about 2 years ago. The listed revenue was about 40% lower than I remembered. I grabbed the previous year's return. Same thing. The numbers were wrong. I fired up his computer. He'd left it on, another sign of his arrogance. Didn't even have a password on his office computer. I found our business accounting software and opened the real books. And that's when I saw it. 2 sets of books. The official ones showing modest profits, carefully calculated to minimize taxes, and then the real ones, hidden in a folder within a folder within a folder labeled Archive 2019 Backup, like it was something innocuous. Our business had been making triple what we'd reported to the IRS for 6 years. My hands started shaking again as I clicked through transaction after transaction. Money coming in from clients, money going out to where? I traced one of the larger payments. It went to an LLC I'd never heard of. I searched the LLC name. It was registered to him and that same name Patricia had written down. The joint holder. I grabbed my phone and typed the name into Google, though my hands shook so hard I had to try 3 times. The first result was a LinkedIn profile. A woman, young, maybe 30, pretty with long dark hair and a practiced smile. And according to her profile, she'd been working as our business development consultant for the past 3 years. I'd never heard of her, never seen an invoice from her, never been told we'd hired anyone. I clicked on her photos, scrolled through smiling shots of her at business conferences, at restaurant openings, at... My breath caught. There, 6 months ago, a photo of her at what looked like a resort, tropical location, beautiful sunset, and in the background, just barely in frame, was my husband, wearing the shirt I'd bought him for his birthday during the business trip he'd taken to Miami. I screenshotted everything. Every transaction, every photo, every email I could find. My hands were cramping from holding my phone, but I couldn't stop. This was evidence. This was proof that my entire marriage had been a carefully constructed fraud. By 3 in the morning, I'd filled 2 flash drives with data, downloaded 6 years of false tax returns, business records, bank statements, photos, and emails that proved my husband hadn't just been stealing from me, he'd been stealing from the IRS, from our business partners, from everyone. And he'd had help. This woman, I'll call her his accomplice because that's exactly what she was, had been instrumental in setting up shell companies, routing money through fake LLCs, and creating a paper trail that made everything look legitimate. I finally collapsed into bed as the sun was coming up, my laptop and both flash drives hidden in my daughter's old room, taped to the back of her bookshelf where nobody would think to look. When I woke up 4 hours later to my phone ringing, I almost didn't answer, but it was a number with a downtown Atlanta area code. Hello? Is this the wife of... The caller said my husband's name. This is Detective Rodriguez with the Atlanta Police Department, Financial Crimes Unit. The bank filed a fraud report this morning. I'd like to speak with you if you're available. I was dressed and in my car within 20 minutes. Detective Rodriguez turned out to be a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense attitude that immediately made me feel less alone. She listened to my entire story without interrupting, taking notes in a worn leather notebook. "You did good," she said when I finished. "Most people panic and don't think to document anything. The fact that you have copies of everything, that's gold. So you can help? You can stop him?" She leaned back in her chair, choosing her words carefully. "What your husband did, the unauthorized transfers, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts, that's financial fraud, clear-cut. We can absolutely pursue charges for that. But the business side is more complicated. If he's been underreporting income to the IRS, that's a federal crime, which means this gets bigger than just a divorce case. This becomes a criminal investigation that could involve multiple agencies." My head was spinning. "I just want my money back. I want what I'm owed." "I understand, but here's what you need to know. If this goes federal, everything freezes. All accounts, all assets, everything gets tied up in the investigation. It could take months, years even. So what do I do? Detective Rodriguez pulled out a business card. You call this attorney, best divorce lawyer in the city, specializes in high asset cases with fraud components. You tell her everything you told me, and you let her guide strategy on whether we pursue criminal charges now or wait until after the divorce is settled. I took the card, the name on it, Rebecca Chan, attorney at law. One more thing, the detective said as I stood to leave. Watch your back. Men who commit financial fraud don't like being caught. They especially don't like being caught by their wives. He's going to try to discredit you, intimidate you, maybe worse, so you document everything from here on out. Every text, every call, every interaction. Understand? I nodded, a chill running down my spine. I called Rebecca Chan from the parking lot. Her secretary tried to tell me she was booked for weeks, but when I mentioned Detective Rodriguez's name and said the word fraud, I was suddenly given an appointment for that same afternoon. Rebecca Chan's office was exactly what I expected, glass and steel and power. She was younger than I had imagined, maybe early 40s, with sharp features and an intensity that made me sit up straighter. I told her everything, showed her the flash drives, walked her through 6 years of fraud, theft, and betrayal. She didn't even blink, just took notes, asked pointed questions, and occasionally made calls to what I assumed were other attorneys or investigators. Finally, she looked up. Here's the situation. Your husband has committed multiple felonies: wire fraud, tax evasion, forgery, identity theft. The list goes on. We have enough evidence to bury him. Relief flooded through me. So we can... She held up a hand. However, if we go full scorched earth right now, he'll probably go to prison, which means the government seizes his assets to pay back taxes and penalties, which means you get nothing. The relief drained away. What? The IRS doesn't care about your divorce settlement. They care about getting their money. Right now, based on what I'm seeing here, your husband probably owes somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to $600,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. I felt sick. So even if I win, I lose? Not necessarily. Here's what I propose. We play dumb for now. We file for divorce on standard grounds. We don't mention the fraud yet. We negotiate a settlement that gives you as much as possible. Then, once your money is secured and the divorce is final, we drop the hammer and report everything to the IRS. Is that legal? Rebecca smiled thinly. Perfectly legal. You're not required to report tax fraud until you're officially questioned about it. And since you're not actually a party to the business, your name's not on any of the false returns, you're in the clear. You're a victim, not an accomplice. It felt dirty, calculated, everything I'd never been in my marriage. But maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd been too trusting, too naive, too willing to believe the best in people. Maybe it was time to be strategic. Okay, I said, what do we do first? Rebecca pulled out a legal pad. First, we respond to his divorce filing with our own petition. We ask for temporary spousal support, exclusive use of the marital home, and an injunction preventing him from selling or transferring any more assets. Will the judge grant that? Honey, when I'm done presenting the evidence of what he's already stolen, the judge will probably grant you his firstborn, but we need to be smart about how we present it. We show just enough to prove he's a flight risk and a financial threat, but we don't show our whole hand. Over the next 3 hours, Rebecca and her team built our case. We compiled the evidence into organized binders, color-coded, cross-referenced, damning. One more thing, Rebecca said as I was leaving, well after dark. You need to be prepared for him to get nasty. Right now, he thinks he's in control. Once he gets served with this petition and realizes you're not rolling over, he's going to come at you hard. Expect him to accuse you of affairs, of being mentally unstable, of being a bad mother. He'll try to flip the script and make himself the victim. "Let him try," I said, and was surprised by the steel in my own voice. "I have the truth." "Good. Hold on to that." Rebecca walked me to the elevator. "Oh, and one more thing. I'm going to recommend you hire a forensic accountant, someone who can trace every dollar and reconstruct the full scope of the fraud. It'll cost you about $10,000 up front, but it'll be worth it." $10,000? A month ago, that would have felt like an impossible expense. Now, after everything he'd stolen, it felt like pocket change. "Do it," I said, "whatever it takes." He was served with my counterpetition 3 days later. I wasn't there to see it, but my attorney's process server reported that he'd turned white as a sheet when he saw the injunction freezing all assets and requiring full financial disclosure. His first call came 20 minutes later. I didn't answer. I'd changed my number and blocked him everywhere except email, which Rebecca advised I keep open for documentation purposes. His email came through at 11 p.m. that night. "What the hell do you think you're doing? You're making a huge mistake. Call off your lawyer and we can settle this reasonably. Don't make this ugly." Don't make this ugly. As if I was the one who'd stolen nearly $200,000 and committed tax fraud. I forwarded the email to Rebecca without responding. Her reply came back, "Perfect. He's rattled. Don't engage." The next day, I got a call from his attorney, the expensive one from the fancy firm. He was smooth, professional, condescending. "Ma'am, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My client is willing to offer you a very generous settlement. The house, half the remaining liquid assets, and $3,000 a month in alimony for 10 years. That's more than fair given the circumstances." "What circumstances would those be?" I asked, my voice cold. Well, the marriage had been deteriorating for some time. My client had been the primary breadwinner, and frankly, the business assets aren't as substantial as you might think. "I see. And does your client's generous offer include returning the $187,000 he stole from our joint accounts?" Silence on the other end. Then, "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "I'm referring to the multiple unauthorized transfers from our joint accounts over the past 3 weeks, the forged signatures, the hidden accounts. Should I go on?" More silence. Then in a harder voice, "Those are serious accusations. I hope you have evidence to back them up." "Oh, I have evidence. Bank statements, forensic analysis, forged documents, all of it documented and ready to present to the judge. Would you like copies, or should I just wait for discovery?" I could practically hear him regrouping on the other end. "I'll need to speak with my client and get back to you." He hung up without saying goodbye. Rebecca called me 10 minutes later, laughing. "His attorney just called me furious. Apparently you gave him quite an earful. Well done." "I probably shouldn't have said all that without you on the line." "Are you kidding? That was perfect. Now they know we're serious, and they know we have evidence they didn't think we had. Watch, they'll come back with a better offer within 48 hours. She was wrong. They came back within 24 hours. The new offer, the house, 70% of liquid assets, $5,000 a month in alimony for 10 years, and an agreement that I wouldn't pursue any fraud claims. "Not even close," Rebecca said when she read it to me. "They're still trying to get away with theft. We're going to discovery, and we're going to make them bleed." The forensic accountant Rebecca had hired turned out to be a mild-mannered man in his 60s named Robert, who looked like someone's kind grandfather. But when he started talking about financial forensics, his eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store. "This is beautiful," he said, scrolling through the evidence I'd compiled. "I mean, terrible for you, obviously, but from a forensic perspective, this is textbook financial fraud, and he documented everything. People always think they're being clever, but they always leave trails." Over the next 2 weeks, Robert reconstructed 6 years of financial crimes. He traced every dollar through every shell company and fake LLC. He found 3 different offshore accounts. He discovered that my husband had been paying his accomplice a salary of $90,000 a year for consulting that consisted entirely of helping him hide money and falsify records. The report Robert produced was 247 pages long and devastating. "Conservative estimate," he said, sliding the bound report across Rebecca's conference table. "Your husband has hidden or stolen approximately $1.2 million in marital assets over the past 6 years." I couldn't breathe. $1.2 million? And that's conservative. There are some accounts I couldn't fully trace, some offshore holdings that are hidden behind additional layers. The real number could be closer to 1.5 million. Rebecca was already flipping through the report, yellow highlighter in hand, marking the most damning sections. "This is enough. This is more than enough. We're filing an emergency motion for full asset disclosure and requesting sanctions for fraud upon the court." "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we're telling the judge your husband has been lying about assets, committing fraud, and attempting to cheat you out of your rightful share of the marital estate. Judges hate it. Hate it. They tend to punish it by giving the innocent party a much larger share of assets." "How much larger?" Rebecca smiled. "In fraud cases like this, I've seen judges award 80, 90, sometimes even 100% of the marital assets to the innocent spouse. Plus, they'll likely make him pay all your legal fees." For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something other than grief and rage. I felt hope. The emergency hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Rebecca prepped me extensively: what to say, how to say it, what to expect from his attorney's attacks. "He's going to try to make you look like you're money hungry, like you're exaggerating the fraud to get a bigger settlement. He'll probably claim you knew all about the business structure all along and are only bringing it up now to gain advantage." "But I didn't know. I had no idea." "I know that. The evidence proves that, but he's going to try anyway. So when he does, you stay calm, you stick to the facts, you let me handle the arguments." The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, our bed, which I still hadn't had the heart to replace, and thought about 23 years of marriage. Had there been signs, red flags I'd missed? Maybe, probably. The locked office door, the business trips that seemed far more frequent, the way he'd insisted on taking over the finances 2 years ago, claiming I was too stressed and needed to focus on other things. I thought he was being thoughtful, protective. He'd been setting me up. My phone buzzed, a text from my daughter. "Mom, I've been going through old photos. Dad was always on his phone during family events, always stepping away for important calls. I just thought he was busy with work, but now, I'm so sorry I didn't see it." I texted back, "Not your fault, baby. He fooled us both, but we're going to be okay, I promise." I wasn't sure if I believed that yet, but I needed her to believe it. And maybe, if I said it enough times, I'd start believing it too. The courthouse in downtown Atlanta was imposing, all marble columns and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. I wore my best suit, the navy one I'd bought for my daughter's college graduation. Rebecca walked beside me, her heels clicking with confidence I tried to borrow. "Remember," she said quietly as we approached the courtroom, "no emotional reactions visible to the judge. He attacks you, you stay calm. You're the victim here, but you're also strong. Show both." The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected from TV shows. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a tired-looking judge who'd probably heard 1,000 divorce cases just like this one. Except this one wasn't like the others. My husband was already there, sitting at the defendant's table with his expensive attorney. He didn't look at me when I walked in, didn't acknowledge me at all, like I was a stranger, like 23 years meant nothing. That hurt more than I expected. Judge Anderson was a black woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain and an expression that said she'd heard every lie imaginable. She looked up as we entered, took in both parties, and sighed. "Another one of these," she muttered to her clerk. Then louder, "All right, let's get started. This is an emergency motion for full asset disclosure and sanctions for fraud upon the court. Miss Chan, you filed the motion. Make your case." Rebecca stood, and I watched her transform into something formidable. "Your Honor, this isn't a typical divorce case. This is a case of systematic, premeditated financial fraud perpetrated by the respondent against my client over a period of 6 years." His attorney shot to his feet. "Your Honor, that's inflammatory language. This is nothing more than—" "Mr. Peterson, sit down. You'll have your turn." Judge Anderson looked back at Rebecca. "Continue, Miss Chan, and I hope you have evidence to back up words like systematic and premeditated." "I do, Your Honor. I'm submitting a 247-page forensic accounting report that documents $1.2 million in hidden and stolen assets, bank statements showing unauthorized transfers, forged signatures on documents transferring my client's retirement funds, false tax returns, shell companies, offshore accounts, and communications between the respondent and his accomplice that prove this was planned and executed with full knowledge of its illegality." The judge took the binders, flipping through them with increasing interest. The courtroom was dead silent except for turning pages. After what felt like an eternity, Judge Anderson looked up. "Mr. Peterson, I'm assuming you have an explanation for this." His attorney stood, looking significantly less confident than when we'd walked in. "Your Honor, my client maintains that all business transactions were legitimate and that his wife was fully aware of the financial structure of their business. She's attempting to rewrite history to gain advantage in the divorce proceedings." "Is that so?" The judge looked at me for the first time. "Ma'am, were you aware your husband had set up multiple shell companies and offshore accounts?" I stood, my voice steadier than I felt. "No, Your Honor, I had no knowledge of any of that. I was locked out of our accounts 3 weeks ago, the same week he filed for divorce. That's when I discovered he'd been systematically stealing from our joint accounts and forging my signature on financial documents." The judge turned to my husband. "Sir, you're under oath. Did you or did you not transfer $187,000 from joint accounts without your wife's knowledge or consent?" For the first time, my husband spoke. "Your Honor, those were my earnings, money I made through my business. I was simply protecting my assets during a divorce." "Before you filed for divorce?" He hesitated. "I knew the divorce was coming." "So you did take the money without her knowledge or consent?" It was my money." "From a joint account?" The judge's voice was sharp now. "Mr. Peterson, I've been doing this for 23 years. I can smell fraud from across the room, and this case reeks of it. Did you or did you not forge your wife's signature on retirement account documents?" His attorney jumped in. "Your Honor, we dispute the authenticity of the—" "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to your client." She stared at my husband. "Did you forge your wife's signature, yes or no?" The silence stretched out. Finally, "The signature might not have been hers, but she would have signed if I'd asked her. She always trusted me with financial decisions." My hands clenched under the table. He just admitted it, admitted to forgery, admitted to using my trust against me. Judge Anderson closed the binder with a snap that echoed through the courtroom. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm ordering full disclosure of all financial accounts, both domestic and international. You have 2 weeks to produce complete documentation, and I'm also freezing all assets except for reasonable living expenses until this matter is resolved. And, Mr. Peterson, if I find out you've hidden or moved any additional assets, I will hold you in contempt and you will sit in jail until you decide to be honest with this court. Are we clear? Your Honor, are we clear? The judge's voice could cut glass. Yes, Your Honor, my husband muttered. Good. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks for a full hearing. And, Mr. Peterson, you might want to have a conversation with a criminal attorney because depending on what else we find, you could be looking at charges beyond just divorce court. This court is adjourned. The gavel banged and my legs nearly gave out with relief. Rebecca grabbed my arm, steadying me. That went better than I could have hoped. Judge Anderson is a bulldog. She's not going to let him hide anything now. Did you hear him? I whispered. He admitted to forging my signature. I heard. So did the court reporter. That's going in the official transcript, which means it can be used against him criminally if needed. We walked out of the courtroom past my husband and his attorney, who were having what looked like a very heated discussion. He looked up as I passed, and for just a second, I saw something in his eyes. Fear. Good. Outside the courthouse, my phone started buzzing. My daughter calling. Mom, I've been sitting in the parking lot. I couldn't go in, but I needed to be here. How did it go? Come to the coffee shop across the street. I'll tell you everything. 20 minutes later, sitting in a corner booth with terrible courthouse-adjacent coffee, I watched my daughter process everything that had happened in that courtroom. He really did all that? Stole from you? Forged your signature? Set up fake companies? All of it, and probably more we haven't found yet. She was quiet for a long time. Then, I called him last week, told him he needed to be fair to you in the divorce. He told me you were having a breakdown, that you were making up lies about him because you couldn't accept the marriage was over. My heart hurt for her. Baby, I'm so sorry you're caught in the middle of this. No, don't apologize. I'm sorry I believed him even for a second. She reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry I didn't see what he was doing. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you right away. You're here now. That's what matters. Rebecca joined us a few minutes later, her laptop bag over her shoulder. I've got good news. His attorney just called. They want to settle. Already? They know they're screwed. That hearing was a disaster for them, and they know it's only going to get worse when we get into full discovery. They're offering 75% of all assets, full return of the stolen money, the house, and $7,500 a month in alimony for 15 years. I did the math in my head. That was substantial, life-changing. What do you think? I asked. Rebecca set down her coffee. Honestly, I think we could get more if we go to trial, especially after that performance in court. Judge Anderson was ready to throw him in jail. We could probably push for 85 or even 90% of assets. But she was quiet for a moment. Personally, I'd take it. Make him sign an agreement that includes an admission of wrongdoing for the fraud. Then, once your money is secured, I'd report everything to the IRS and let them go after him for the tax evasion. You get your settlement, he gets what's coming to him, and you don't have to spend the next year of your life in courtrooms. It was tempting, so tempting, but there was still one piece missing. What about her? I asked, his accomplice, the one who helped him set up the shell companies and hide the money. Rebecca's smile was sharp. Oh, her? She's going to have her own problems because the evidence shows she knew about the tax fraud, helped execute it, and profited from it. The IRS doesn't care if you're the mistress or the wife. If you committed fraud, you pay. We accepted the settlement offer, but with conditions. Rebecca spent 3 days negotiating every clause, every comma, making sure there were no loopholes he could exploit later. The final agreement was 57 pages long and included 75% of all marital assets, including the house and all vehicles, full return of the $187,000 stolen from joint accounts, $7,500 monthly alimony for 15 years, all retirement accounts in my name transferred back with interest. His agreement to pay all my legal fees, including the forensic accountant, and, this was Rebecca's masterstroke, a signed affidavit admitting to the forgery, the unauthorized transfers, and the hidden accounts. "Why does the affidavit matter?" I asked as we reviewed the final draft. "Because when you report him to the IRS, you'll have his signed confession. No he said, she said. No ability for him to claim you're just a vindictive ex-wife making things up. He signed it, under oath, in a legal proceeding. That's gold." The signing was scheduled for a Wednesday morning at his attorney's office. I wore the same navy suit I'd worn to court, like armor. He looked terrible. Gray skin, dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept in weeks. Good. We didn't speak, just sat on opposite sides of the conference table while our attorneys reviewed every page of the agreement. When it came time to sign, his hand shook. "This is a mistake," he muttered, pen hovering over the signature line. "You're making a huge mistake." "Sign it," his attorney said wearily, "or go to trial and lose everything." He signed. So did I. Just like that, 23 years of marriage ended with 2 signatures and 57 pages of legal documents. I walked out of that office with a certified check for $187,000, documents transferring 75% of our assets to my name, and a USB drive containing his signed confession. My daughter was waiting in the parking lot. When she saw me, she jumped out of her car and ran over. "Is it done?" "It's done." She hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "I'm so proud of you, Mom. You fought back. You won." Had I won? I'd gotten the money. I'd gotten the house. I'd exposed his fraud. But I'd also lost 23 years, lost the life I thought I had, lost the person I thought I'd married. That felt less like winning and more like surviving. "Come on," my daughter said, linking her arm through mine. "Rebecca said you have one more stop to make today." The IRS office was in a bland government building in Midtown Atlanta. Rebecca had made an appointment with a special agent in criminal investigation. Apparently, there's a whole division dedicated to tax fraud. Special Agent Williams was a woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and an aggressive handshake. She listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes. When I finished, I slid the USB drive across her desk. "Everything's on here. 6 years of false tax returns, hidden income, shell companies, offshore accounts, and his signed confession admitting to fraud." She plugged in the drive and started clicking through files. Her expression never changed, but I noticed her jaw tightening. After about 20 minutes, she looked up. "This is comprehensive, very comprehensive. Did you compile all this yourself?" "I had help from a forensic accountant, and I found some of it in his office." "His office in your marital home?" "Yes." She made a note. "So you had legal access to these documents. Good, that makes them admissible." She closed the laptop. "Ma'am, I'm going to be honest with you. This is one of the clearest cases of tax fraud I've seen in years. Your ex-husband is looking at serious jail time if we can prove even half of what's here." "I'm not trying to send him to prison," I said quickly. "I just want him to pay what he owes, to face consequences." "I understand, but tax evasion is a federal crime. Once I submit this to the U.S. Attorney's Office, it's out of my hands. They decide whether to prosecute." "How long does that take?" "Months usually, maybe a year. We'll need to conduct our own investigation, verify everything, build a case. You'll probably have to testify." I nodded slowly. "I can do that." "Good." She stood, shaking my hand again. "One more thing. You mentioned an accomplice, someone who helped him set up the shell companies." I gave her the name and everything we'd found about her involvement. Agent Williams wrote it all down. "She'll be part of the investigation, too. If she knew about the fraud and helped execute it, she's equally liable." Walking out of that building, I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even know was there, and suddenly it was gone. "How do you feel?" Rebecca asked. Exhausted, relieved, angry, sad? I laughed weakly. Is it possible to feel everything and nothing at the same time? After what you've been through, absolutely. My daughter drove me home to the house that was now legally mine alone. As we pulled into the driveway, I noticed something. The garden I'd planted 10 years ago had grown wild. The flowers were overgrown, weeds everywhere, like it had been neglected for months. It had been. I'd been so consumed with survival I hadn't even looked at my own garden. Want help cleaning it up? My daughter asked. We spent the rest of the afternoon pulling weeds, trimming back the overgrowth, rediscovering the flowers underneath. It felt therapeutic, like we were pulling out all the lies and neglect and exposing the truth underneath. As the sun started setting, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. Hello? Is this, a woman's voice, hesitant, is this his ex-wife? My stomach dropped. Who is this? I was his girlfriend before you, in college. I sat down hard on the porch steps. Why are you calling me? Because I saw the news about his divorce, about the fraud charges, and I needed you to know you're not the only one. What do you mean? He did the same thing to me 25 years ago. We were engaged. He convinced me to put his name on my trust fund for estate planning purposes. Then he emptied it and disappeared. I was too embarrassed to press charges, too ashamed that I'd been stupid enough to trust him. My hand tightened on the phone. How much did he take? $75,000, which was everything I had. Jesus, this wasn't just my story, this was his pattern, a lifetime of fraud and theft and using women who trusted him. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I heard you fought back. I heard you got the evidence and took him to court, and I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd been brave enough. Her voice broke. But maybe it's not too late. The detective handling your case, Rodriguez? I called her, told her everything. She said I can still file a report, that it might help build the case against him. You should, I said. You absolutely should. Will you testify if it goes to trial? I don't know if I'm strong enough to face him alone. I thought about that courtroom, about facing him across that table, about watching him squirm under the judge's questions. Yes, I said, I'll be there. You won't be alone. After we hung up, I told my daughter everything. That bastard, she said, and I didn't even correct her language. He's been doing this his entire life? Apparently. How many others do you think there are? That's when it hit me. If there were 2 of us who knew about it, how many others were there out there? How many other women did he charm, steal from, and abandon? I think, I said slowly, we need to find out. My daughter had an idea. She was in marketing, worked with social media, understood how to reach people in ways I never would. We need to find the others, she said, pacing my living room that evening. But we have to be smart about it. We can't blast his name all over the internet. That's defamation, even if it's true. But we can create a safe space for people to come forward. She spent the next week building a website. Nothing with his name on it, just a simple page. If you've experienced financial fraud in a romantic relationship, share your story here. We posted it on support forums, shared it in divorce groups, sent it to domestic violence organizations. We didn't mention him specifically, just cast a wide net and waited. The first response came 3 days later. I was engaged to a man in 2008. He convinced me to invest in his startup company. I gave him $45,000 from my savings. The company never existed. By the time I figured it out, he'd disappeared. The details she provided matched. The timeline fit. She sent photos. It was him. 15 years younger, but definitely him. The second response came the next day. I dated a consultant in 2015. We moved in together. He asked me to add him to my bank account for emergencies. Within 6 months, he drained $30,000 and left me with the apartment lease. Then another, and another, and another. By the end of 2 weeks, we had 9 women. 9 different women across 27 years, from California to New York to Texas to right here in Georgia. His pattern was consistent: charm them, gain their trust, get access to their money, steal it, and disappear. Some had reported it to police. Most hadn't, too embarrassed, too ashamed, convinced it was somehow their fault for being stupid enough to trust him. The total he'd stolen from all of them combined, over $400,000. And that was just the ones who'd found us. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printed testimonies, my hands shaking. "Mom?" My daughter put her hand on my shoulder. "You okay?" "I married a monster," I whispered. "I spent 23 years with a man who's been systematically destroying women's lives for 3 decades. You didn't know." "How did I not know? How did I miss this?" "Because he's good at it. He's had 30 years of practice." She sat down across from me. "But now we know, and now we can do something about it." We contacted Detective Rodriguez with everything we'd found. She was stunned. "This changes everything," she said, looking through the testimonies. "This isn't just financial fraud and a divorce. This is a pattern of criminal behavior spanning decades. Serial fraud. This could mean federal charges, multi-state prosecution, serious prison time." "Good," I said, and meant it. She organized a meeting with all 9 women who were willing to come forward. We met at the police station on a Saturday morning. 9 women, ranging from their 30s to their 50s, from all walks of life, all successful, all intelligent, all victims of the same man. There was something powerful about sitting in that room together, about realizing we weren't alone, weren't crazy, weren't stupid. We were survivors. One woman, Maria, had been his first victim, the college girlfriend who'd called me. She was in her late 40s now, a successful real estate agent in California. "I've spent 25 years thinking I was an idiot, thinking I should have seen it coming. And now I find out there are 8 more of us, that it wasn't my fault at all," she said, tears streaming down her face. Another woman, Jessica, had been engaged to him in 2012. He'd stolen her inheritance, $60,000 her grandmother had left her. "He told me his mother was sick, needed surgery the insurance wouldn't cover," she said bitterly. "I gave him the money because I loved him, because I thought we were building a life together. His mother wasn't even sick." Story after story, each one more heartbreaking than the last. Detective Rodriguez recorded everything. This is enough for the DA to bring charges: multiple counts of fraud, theft by deception, probably forgery given his history. We're talking decades in prison if he's convicted. "What are his chances of being convicted?" I asked. "With this many victims, this much evidence, this clear a pattern? Very high. Defense attorneys hate pattern evidence because it's almost impossible to explain away. One victim, they can claim it's a misunderstanding or a civil dispute. 9 victims? That's a criminal enterprise." The DA's office moved faster than I expected. Within a month, my ex-husband was arrested at his office. My daughter showed me the news article on her phone. "Local business owner arrested on multiple fraud charges." There was his mugshot. He looked older than I remembered, defeated. "How do you feel?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted. "Part of me feels vindicated. Part of me feels sad. I spent 23 years with that man. I thought I knew him." "You knew who he pretended to be. That's not the same thing." She was right, of course. The man I'd married, the man I loved, he'd never really existed. He'd been a character, a role he played to get what he wanted. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. All 9 of us were asked to testify. "Are you ready for this?" Rebecca asked me over coffee the day before. "It's going to be intense. His attorney is going to try to discredit you, make it seem like you're just vindictive ex-partners." "Let him try," I said. "I have bank statements and forensic reports and his signed confession. What does he have? Lies." The courtroom was packed the next day. All 9 of us were there, along with our various attorneys, supporters, friends, family. The gallery was full of people who'd been following the case in the media. My ex-husband was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He'd been denied bail, flight risk given his history and the offshore accounts. He looked at each of us in turn as we took our seats in the witness section. I watched his face when he realized what he was seeing, all of us, together, unified. His expression crumbled. The prosecution called Maria first. She took the stand with her head high and told her story, told how he charmed her, gained her trust, stolen her trust fund, and disappeared. His attorney tried to cross-examine, suggesting it had been a loan, a misunderstanding. "Was it a loan when he changed his phone number and moved to a different state without telling me?" Maria asked, her voice like steel. "Was it a misunderstanding when he drained my account in a single day and left me with the apartment lease?" The attorney had no response. One by one, we all testified. 9 women, 9 stories, one consistent pattern. By the time I took the stand, the last to testify, the courtroom was silent. Even the judge looked affected. I told my story, the divorce papers, the stolen money, the forged signatures, the 6 years of hidden fraud, the accomplice, all of it. "And you discovered all of this only after he filed for divorce?" the prosecutor asked. "Yes. He was careful. He made sure I didn't suspect anything until it was too late, or so he thought." "What made you investigate further instead of just accepting the divorce?" I looked directly at my ex-husband. "Because something didn't add up, and I've learned that when something doesn't add up, you follow the math. The math led me to 6 years of fraud, $1.2 million in hidden assets, and 8 other women he'd victimized before me." "What would you say to other women who might be in similar situations?" I took a breath. "Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let embarrassment or shame stop you from protecting yourself. And know that it's not your fault. You're not stupid for trusting someone you love. They're criminal for exploiting that trust." When I stepped down, Maria was waiting outside the courtroom. So were the others. "Thank you," she said, "for finding us, for bringing us together, for making sure he finally faces consequences. We did this together, all of us." The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution brought in financial experts, forensic accountants, IRS agents. They traced every dollar, every fake company, every forged signature. The defense tried everything. They claimed we were all lying, that we'd coordinated our stories. They suggested the relationships had been legitimate and the money had been loans or gifts. They painted him as a victim of vindictive ex-partners. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records don't lie. Forged signatures don't lie. Shell companies registered in fake names don't lie. On the 18th day of trial, the jury got the case. They deliberated for 6 hours. When they came back, I was sitting between my daughter and Maria. We were all holding hands, 9 women united by one man's crimes. "On the count of wire fraud, how do you find?" Guilty. "On the count of tax evasion, how do you find?" Guilty. "On the count of identity theft, how do you find?" Guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. 23 counts, all guilty. I watched him crumble in his chair, watched his attorney put a hand on his shoulder, watched the bailiff approach to take him back into custody. He looked at me one last time as they led him away. I expected to see anger, resentment, hatred. Instead, I saw defeat. The sentencing hearing was 3 months later. Each of us was invited to give a victim impact statement. Maria went first. She talked about the 25 years of shame, of blaming herself, of letting his crime shape her entire life. "I'm 47 years old," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "I spent half my life thinking I was stupid, that I deserved what happened. Now I know the truth. I wasn't stupid. He was criminal. And today, finally, he pays for that." Jessica talked about the inheritance he'd stolen, money her grandmother had saved for 50 years. "That money was supposed to be my start in life," she said. "Instead, it became his luxury vacation fund. He stole more than money. He stole my grandmother's legacy." One by one, we all spoke. 9 women, 9 stories of betrayal and theft and survival. When it was my turn, I stood at the podium and looked directly at the judge. "Your Honor, I spent 23 years married to a man I thought I knew. I built a life with him, raised a daughter with him, trusted him with everything I had, and the entire time I was married to a criminal who was systematically stealing from me and planning his escape. But here's what he didn't count on. He didn't count on me fighting back. He thought I'd be too embarrassed, too ashamed, too broken to expose him. He thought wrong. I'm standing here today not just for myself, but for all of us, for every woman he victimized, for every person who's ever been financially abused by someone they trusted. We're here to say, no more. We fought back. We won. And I hope anyone watching this, anyone in a similar situation, sees us and knows it's not your fault. You're not alone, and there is justice." I sat down to absolute silence. Then, slowly, applause started. Quiet at first, then growing. The judge banged her gavel, but she was almost smiling. The defense made their plea for leniency. They talked about his difficult childhood, his work in the community, his remorse. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, the defendant showed no remorse when he was stealing from 9 different women across 3 decades. He showed no remorse when he forged his wife's signature and drained their joint accounts. He showed no remorse when he systematically evaded taxes for 6 years. The only thing he regrets is getting caught." Judge Martinez, a stern woman who'd presided over the trial with no-nonsense efficiency, looked at my ex-husband. "You've been convicted of 23 felonies. You've stolen over $1.6 million from 9 women who trusted you. You've evaded over $600,000 in taxes. You've forged signatures, created fake companies, and systematically defrauded everyone in your life. I've been a judge for 19 years. I've seen a lot of criminals, but rarely have I seen someone who committed fraud as calculated, as premeditated, and heartless as yours. You didn't just steal money. You stole years from these women. You stole their trust, their security, their sense of safety in the world. Some of them spent decades blaming themselves for what you did. I'm sentencing you to 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole for the first 15 years. You'll also be required to pay full restitution to all victims, plus penalties and interest. And when you're released, you'll be on supervised probation for the rest of your life. 25 years. He'd be in his 70s when he got out. As they led him away, he looked back one more time, not at me, at our daughter. She looked away. Outside the courthouse, reporters were everywhere. News vans, cameras, journalists shouting questions. How do you feel about the verdict? Do you think justice was served? What would you say to other victims of financial fraud? I stopped at the top of the courthouse steps. Behind me, 8 other women stood in solidarity. We want to say this to anyone watching, I started, my voice clear despite the cameras. If you're in a relationship where you don't have access to financial information, where your partner controls all the money, where you're not allowed to ask questions, that's not love, that's control. Financial abuse is real abuse. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like someone being protective or handling the stress of money management. But if you're not allowed to know where your money is, that's a red flag. We were lucky. We had evidence. We had each other. We had the courage to come forward. But so many victims don't. They stay silent because they're ashamed or scared or think it's hopeless. To those people, we say, you're not alone. There are resources. There are people who will believe you. There are ways to fight back. And it's never too late to reclaim your power. The questions continued, but Rebecca ushered us away. We'd said what we needed to say. That evening, all 9 of us met at my house, the house that was mine now, completely mine. We ordered pizza, drank wine, and sat in my living room that I'd redecorated after the divorce. I can't believe it's over, Jessica said. After everything, it's finally over. It's not over, Maria corrected gently. We still have to rebuild. We still have trauma to process. But this chapter is closed. We talked late into the night, sharing not just our stories of him, but our stories of survival, our new jobs, new relationships, new lives we'd built. I opened my own business, one woman said. I went back to school, another said. I learned to trust again, a third said, holding up her engagement ring from someone new. We'd all survived, more than survived. We'd fought back and won. My daughter pulled me aside as the evening was winding down. Mom, I'm so proud of you. You could have just taken the settlement and moved on. Instead, you exposed him and saved all these other women from what happened to you. I didn't save them. I just gave them a reason to come forward. Still, you're a badass. I laughed. Language. You literally took down a criminal mastermind. You get to be called a badass. The restitution payments started coming in 2 months after sentencing. The IRS seized most of his assets, the offshore accounts, the hidden properties, everything. Between that and the criminal restitution order, all 9 of us got our money back. Not that money could replace what was taken, but it helped. I used mine to pay off the house completely and put a good chunk into investments. Financial independence, real independence, felt like oxygen after years of slowly suffocating. My daughter moved back to Atlanta, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. I missed you, she said, and I want to be here while you figure out what comes next. What came next turned out to be unexpected. One of the women from our group, Diana, worked at a domestic violence nonprofit. She approached me with an idea. We need a financial abuse education program, she said over coffee one morning. Most people don't even know what financial abuse looks like until they're trapped in it. And you have this platform now. People know your story. Will you help me build something? 6 months later, we launched the Financial Freedom Project. We created free workshops teaching people about financial literacy, signs of financial abuse, and how to protect themselves. We taught people how to maintain separate accounts, even in marriage, recognize red flags in financial relationships, document financial abuse, build credit independently, and recover after financial fraud. The response was overwhelming. We started with 1 workshop a month in Atlanta. Within a year, we were running programs in 12 states. I never set out to become an advocate. I just wanted to survive my divorce and maybe help a few other women avoid what happened to me. Instead, I found purpose. My ex-husband became eligible for early release programs after serving 12 years. I got a notification that he was applying for parole. All 9 of us submitted statements opposing it. The defendant has served only half his sentence. He's shown no genuine remorse beyond regret at being caught. Early release would send a message that financial fraud isn't serious, that victims don't matter, that criminals like him can charm their way out of consequences just like they charmed their way into our lives. His parole was denied. He'll be eligible again in 3 years. We'll be ready then, too. Meanwhile, life continued. My daughter got engaged to a wonderful man who, the first time I met him, showed me his financial statements unprompted and suggested they get a prenup because healthy relationships have healthy boundaries. I might have cried a little. The wedding was beautiful. My daughter walked down the aisle to her future while I sat in the front row, so proud I thought my heart might burst. At the reception, during the parent dance, my daughter whispered, "Thank you for showing me what strength looks like, for teaching me that it's okay to fight back when someone hurts you." I said, "You did that yourself. I just showed you it was possible." "That's everything, Mom. That's everything." I started dating again about 3 years after the divorce, cautiously, very cautiously. There was a man named David who I met at one of our financial freedom workshops. He was there because his sister had been a victim of financial abuse, and he wanted to learn how to help her. We started with coffee, then dinner, then more dinners. On our 5th date, he handed me a folder. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "Credit report, bank statements, tax returns for the last 3 years. I know your history. I know what you've been through. I thought transparency might help." I stared at him. "You're giving me your financial records?" "Full transparency. That's how it should be, right? No secrets, no control, just partnership." Reader, I married him. Not right away. We dated for 3 years first, went to couples therapy to work through my trust issues, built a relationship based on honesty and respect and real partnership. On our wedding day, Maria was there. So were Jessica and Diana and all the other women from our group, my chosen family, forged in fire. "Look at you," Maria said, hugging me tight. "You made it. You really made it." We all did, every single one of us. The Financial Freedom Project kept growing. We published a book, started a podcast, created online courses, partnered with domestic violence organizations across the country. We heard from thousands of people who said our work had helped them recognize abuse, leave dangerous situations, protect themselves. One woman wrote, "I found your website while my husband was sleeping. I'd been feeling crazy for months, but I couldn't figure out why. Your checklist on financial abuse had 12 things he was doing to me. 12. I got my documents in order, opened a separate account, and left 2 weeks later. You saved my life." That's what kept us going. Every story like that made every difficult moment worth it. 7 years after my divorce, I sat down to write this story. Not just my story, but our story. 9 women who refused to be victims. Because here's what I learned. Trauma doesn't have to define you. Yes, terrible things happen. Yes, people you trust will betray you. Yes, the world is sometimes cruel and unfair. But you get to decide what comes next. You can let the betrayal break you, or you can let it forge you into something stronger. You can hide in shame, or you can stand in your truth. You can stay silent, or you can speak up and maybe save someone else from the same fate. I chose to fight. We all did. And that choice changed everything. My ex-husband is still in prison. He'll be there for years yet. Part of me wonders if he ever thinks about us, about the lives he destroyed. Probably not. Narcissists rarely do. But I think about him sometimes. Not with hatred anymore, not even with anger, with pity. Because I built something beautiful from the ashes of his destruction. I found purpose, community, love, and meaning. He's sitting in a cell with nothing but his regrets and the consequences of his choices. I won, not because he lost, but because I refused to let his actions define the rest of my life. That's real victory. So here we are. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Our story. I know it was long. I know parts of it were painful. But I needed you to understand the full picture. Not just the crime, but the recovery. Not just the trauma, but the triumph. Because that's the part that matters most. I'm sitting in my home office right now, the one I designed after the divorce. The walls are painted a soft blue that makes me feel calm. There are photos everywhere. My daughter's wedding, our financial freedom workshops, the 9 of us at the courthouse after the verdict. My new husband just brought me coffee, the good kind with hazelnut creamer. He kissed the top of my head and went back to his own office down the hall. This is my life now, peaceful, stable, built on truth instead of lies. It's been 10 years since that Tuesday morning when everything changed. 10 years since those divorce papers appeared on my kitchen counter. Sometimes people ask if I regret marrying him, if I wish I could go back and choose differently. The answer is complicated. Do I regret the fraud, the theft, the betrayal? Absolutely. But I don't regret my daughter. I don't regret the strength I found in myself. I don't regret meeting the other 9 women who became my sisters in survival. I don't regret finding my purpose in helping others. You don't get to cherry pick your past. You can only choose how you move forward. And I chose to move forward fighting. Here's what I want you to know if you're watching this and something in my story resonated with you. Financial abuse is real. It's insidious. It's often invisible until it's too late. It can happen to anyone, rich, poor, educated, uneducated, young, old. It doesn't discriminate. The signs aren't always obvious. Sometimes it looks like love, like protection, like someone trying to help. But real love doesn't hide information. Real love doesn't control access to money. Real love doesn't require you to sign documents without reading them or trust blindly without question. If you're in a relationship where you don't have access to financial accounts, your partner controls all the money and gives you an allowance, you're not allowed to work or have your own income, financial decisions are made without your input, you're pressured to sign documents you don't understand, your partner gets angry when you ask questions about money, you feel afraid to spend money on basic necessities, your credit is being damaged by your partner's actions. That's not love. That's abuse. And you deserve better. I also want to talk to those of you who feel like it's too late, like you've already been victimized and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not too late. I was 52 years old when I started fighting back. Maria was 47. One of the women in our group was 63. Age doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. What matters is making the decision to reclaim your power. Start small. Open a bank account in your name only. Get copies of all financial documents. Check your credit report. Talk to a trusted friend or family member. Contact a domestic violence organization. Yes, they handle financial abuse too. Consult with an attorney, even if you're not ready to leave yet. Document everything. Knowledge is power. Evidence is power. Community is power. You're not alone. When I started this journey, I felt completely isolated. I thought I was the only stupid enough to be fooled so completely. Now I know there are millions of us, millions of people who've experienced financial abuse or fraud in relationships. The shame belongs to the abusers, not us. We loved honestly. We trusted genuinely. We built lives with open hearts. They exploited that. They weaponized our love and trust against us. That's on them, not us. So if you're watching this and you feel in that dark place I was 10 years ago, sitting on your kitchen floor, wondering how your life fell apart, feeling stupid and ashamed and broken, I need you to hear this. You're not stupid. You're human. You're not weak. You're surviving. You're not broken. You're in process. And there is a path forward. It won't be easy. There will be days when you want to give up, when the fight feels too hard, when you wonder if it's worth it. It is worth it. You are worth it. To everyone watching who's never experienced this, and I hope that's most of you, I have a different message. Believe victims when they come forward. Don't ask, how could you not know, or why did you stay? Those questions come from a place of privilege, from people who've never experienced manipulation by someone they love. Instead, ask, how can I help? And what do you need? Support the organizations doing this work. Donate to domestic violence nonprofits. Volunteer with financial literacy programs. Share resources with people who might need them. And most importantly, watch for the signs in your own circles. Financial abuse often happens in plain sight. People make jokes about partners who control the purse strings or don't let them spend money. That's not funny. That's abuse. Speak up. Check in. Be the person who sees past the facade and asks the hard questions. Before I close, I want to address those of you who might be perpetrating financial abuse. Maybe you stumbled onto this video by accident. Maybe someone sent it to you. Maybe you're watching it and recognizing yourself in my ex-husband's actions. Here's what I want you to know. It's not too late to change. Controlling someone financially is a choice. You can make a different choice. Seek therapy. Deal with whatever insecurity or trauma is driving you to control others. Learn what healthy relationships actually look like. Because right now, you're destroying not just your partner's life, but your own. You're building a house of cards that will eventually collapse, and when it does, the consequences will be severe. Change now while you still can. All right, I think I've talked long enough. If you made it all the way through this story, you're incredible, seriously. Before you go, I need you to do me a few favors. First, hit that like button if this story impacted you in any way. It helps more people find it, and maybe it'll help someone who really needs to hear it. Second, subscribe to this channel. We share stories like this, stories of survival, resilience, and fighting back. Stories that matter. Third, share this video with someone who might need it. You never know who in your life might be experiencing financial abuse and not even realize it. This video could be the wake-up call that changes their life. Fourth, drop a comment. Tell me where you're watching from, what resonated with you, what you learned. Let's build a community of people who support survivors and stand against financial abuse. And finally, if this story helped you, if it gave you courage or clarity or hope, pay it forward. Help someone else. Share resources. Be the person who believes victims and stands up for those who can't stand up for themselves yet. That's how we change the world. One conversation, one act of courage, one moment of solidarity at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring enough to watch a stranger's story for over an hour. You matter. Your support matters. Together, we're stronger than any abuser, any fraud, any betrayal. Remember, it's never too late to fight back. It's never too late to reclaim your power. It's never too late to write a new ending to your story. Mine didn't end with divorce papers on a kitchen counter. It ended with justice, purpose, community, and love. Yours can too. Until next time, stay strong, stay vigilant, and never stop fighting for yourself and for others. You've got this. We've all got this. Together.